Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sir Hunt on X on this 5th of November 2025. Happy George Foreman Day to those in the fight community. I will touch on that at the end of the show, and I think you guys know what I'm talking about. I will talk about a little bit of why today is George Foreman Day at the end of the show. Going to get right down to it. Lots to get to. Of course, it is week 9 of the NFL season. Going to touch on this here real quick. It's going to be week 10. I do apologize. This is where we start to find out what the teams are made of. Get this going here with the schedule. Start with tomorrow night. It is the Raiders and the Broncos. Broncos are on the come up. Raiders are fading fast. Can't see this being any more than a one-sided win for the Broncos. They're just better all over the place. Give me Denver at home, and I think this one will be about a 2 to 3 touchdown difference. They have the spread here at 9. Take the over because I think Denver is going to win that convincingly. Now we fast forward to the overseas game that's taking place in Germany. It is the Falcons and now the new look Colts that includes Sauce Gardner. I'll touch on that trade here in a minute. Doesn't matter who's playing for the Colts or the Falcons. The thing is, the Colts know they laid an egg against the Steelers last Sunday. I don't expect them to do that 2 weeks in a row. I expect them to come back. I think they feed Jonathan Taylor the ball more often. Bijan Robinson is going to get his for you fantasy owners who wants to play him. Go ahead. But the difference is the Colts have more and will bring more to the table. Indy's going to win this one. It'll be closer than people think. They have the spread at around 6.5. I think Atlanta covers the spread. But the Colts get the win. And a good one over here in Minnesota. It is a suddenly resurgent Baltimore Ravens, suddenly healthy Baltimore Ravens going to Minnesota against these so-so Minnesota Vikings. Interesting chess match here. We talk about Lamar Jackson versus the defense of Brian Flores and the schemes he's going to try and draw up to slow him down. But Lamar Jackson has Derrick Henry. And Lamar Jackson has guys to get past it to, like Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and Mark Andrews. And both of these teams came off of much-needed road wins. Minnesota a little bit more confident. We consider they got a division win in Detroit, especially with J.J. McCarthy coming back. But the story here, I think Baltimore keeps the momentum going. And they know they can catch Pittsburgh and win that AFC North if they want to. I think that continues here. Spread on this one is 4. I think it stays at that difference. Baltimore wins this one on the road. Buffalo at Miami. Of course, the Bills coming off the emotional win over Kansas. Miami is just a hot mess. Spread on this one is 9.5. Take the over. Buffalo's going to win big. They cover that big time. That one has a potential to be over by halftime if the Bills stay focused. And of course, it is the Tank Bowl between the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. Browns made a weird trade. We know what the Jets did to clean house because they're building for the future. The season's already done. They had their playoff win in Cincinnati 2 weeks ago. So they can just clean house, get rid of all the toxic they had over there. Going against the Cleveland defense led by Myles Garrett. The thing is, question is going to be who's going to play worse of these two because both teams are going to tank for that number 1 overall pick. But the difference here is the Browns defense is going to muck it up and get the win. They have the spread here at 2.5. Do whatever you want with that one and the Tank Bowl because that's what there's going to be Sunday at New York. Jacksonville at Houston. C.J. Stroud already ruled out, so that means Davis Mills is going to be on the roster. Going against a Jaguars team who's banged up, and they made one of the weirdest trades I've ever seen. When you forked out all the draft capital to get Jacoby Myers, when you already have 4 wide receivers on the roster, I don't know why you need to get a 5th. But for Trevor Lawrence, it's do or die because you have no excuses anymore. You have Brian Thomas Jr., you have Travis Hunter, you added Jacoby Myers, and you may have Parker Washington. I don't know why you guys don't even use him over there in Jacksonville, but you have no excuses not to get the job done because it's now or never for Trevor Lawrence. And I think the lockout is no C.J. Stroud this week for Houston. So Jacksonville, I'd probably say escapes barely. It's basically pegged as a 1.5 point spread either way. I don't know how you're going to magnitude that, but because of no CJ Stroud, give me Jacksonville. Although this one I'm taking on a coin flip because a lot of you people, yours truly being one of them, is still not 100% sold on Trevor Lawrence. And the trade they made on the deadline, which I'll touch on when I talk about the deadlines, was one of the weirdest ones of the day that made next to no sense. Because they already have they have receivers on the roster they can use. I don't know why they didn't feel the need to get Jacoby Myers for, because it was senseless and useless. And why do we toss picks down the tube like they did when they coughed up the first round pick to get Travis Hunter in a nonsensical trade? The game of the day in the early slate, it is the New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, a field goal spread, I expect that to be the spread either way. Bucs are coming off a bye, which was needed after having receivers hurt all over the place. And it's still a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the NFC. A lot of people riding the Patriots bandwagon. I mean, I get it. I mean, Drake May is him. I mean, what can you say? Drake May is him. I mean, everybody's putting him in the Tom Brady conversation, which is just ignorant, but I'm not even going to go that far. But Drake May is him, and he's got a nice plethora of receivers, which includes Stephon Diggs. And the defense is playing as well as anything. Mike Vrabel putting his imprint on the Patriots team the way he did when he coached Tennessee. Almost similarities. The only difference is a better quarterback. But you're going to Tampa Bay against a Tampa Bay team who's basically fighting for a playoff spot and to fight off the Falcons and the Panthers for the NFC South title. And I think in this home tilt, give me Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a pretty darn good one. I think it has the makings of a shootout. Could be in the 35-30 range. Give me Tampa Bay at home. I think Baker Mayfield makes the plays to win. That's going to be the difference. And another tank bowl, it is the Panthers and the Saints. I know the Panthers are 5-4, coming off the great win over Green Bay, but the people are not still sold on them. The only reason why they're looking good is because they have Rico Dwaddle, who's a running machine right now. You can't even, if you put a brick wall in front of Rico Dwaddle, he's going to run right through it. That's how good Rico Dwaddle is playing right now. Give me Carolina at home. Saints are in the tank bowl, trying to get that number one pick with the Jets and the Browns. And that one, I think, if they just keep giving Rico Dwaddle the ball, game's going to be over by halftime. All they have to do is give Rico Dwaddle the ball. And the Giants and the Bears coming off the crazy game against Cincinnati, against a Giants team without Cam Scatterboo. That's not going to help. Bears win this one. I think if they focus, this one could be over by halftime. Caleb Williams playing solid ball under head coach Ben Johnson. Got to give him that. So give me the Bears at home. So that's your 1 o'clock early slate games. Now we're going to go to the late games, the 4 o'clock slate. Of course, in the Pacific Northwest, it is Arizona and Seattle. Arizona looked a little better. Of course, they beat Dallas, but that's a Dallas defense. They're going against that tough Seattle front led by Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. That defense, that front seven, showed how nasty they got when they put the clamps on Washington, and I expect that to continue on their home field. They're keeping the good thing is if Cardinals is keeping Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, that gives them a fighting chance. They keep this game close, but Seattle wins at home. That defense is as nasty as it can get, and that connection from Sam Darnold to Jackson Smith-Njigba, probably as good as any quarterback wide receiver duo in the NFL right now this season, and they are just cooking. And you saw what happened in the first half against the Washington Commanders when Sam Darnold just pitched a perfect game. That's what he pretty much did. And Smith-Njigba is just smashing every single receiving record, single season-wise right now. Send it to the top 2 or 3 wide receiver in the NFL with guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. But Seattle wins this one at home. Arizona keeps this close the best they could. Detroit at Washington. Well, no Jaden Daniels. Probably no Terry McLaurin. And after an embarrassing home loss at home to Minnesota this past Sunday, Detroit bounces back. Jared Goff has himself a big game. They go back to handing the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and Detroit wins this one big on the road. And another tough NFC West showdown is, of course, the Rams and the 49ers. Whenever these two teams go at it, they go at it. I mean, the biggest luck out the 49ers had the last time was a Kyren Williams fumble inside the 1 yard line. That changed everything at that point. I don't think the Rams are going to make that same mistake twice. Mac Jones playing very darn well. You got to give him that. Mac Jones is playing pretty darn well in place of Brock Purdy. And the 49ers are 6-3. You got to give them that. And they're playing pretty darn well. But Matthew Stafford is an MVP candidate for a reason. And you could probably say he's the MVP right now. That's how good he's playing. And with Puka Nacua likely coming back, that's going to be more than enough for the Rams to win at Levi Stadium in San Francisco. Give me the Rams. I think this one comes down to the wire. Matthew Stafford or Mac Jones. The answer is Matthew Stafford. That's the difference. And the Sunday night tilt, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Los Angeles Chargers. Well, lots of ways I can go with this. And I'm surprised how many people think it's going to be one-sided for LA. It won't be, because the Colts offensive line, they lost Joe Alt, they lost Rashawn Slater to begin the season. They got Trevor Penning from the Saints. I think a good solid piece for the rest of the season, because we know Alt and Slater aren't coming back. Steelers defense, I think they found themselves a little bit when they beat Indiana. They're going to go cross country against a banged up Chargers team, not just banged up at the tackle and offensive line, but I don't know who the heck their running back is. Najee Harris gone for the year. There's no Marion Hampton. And Justin Herbert, is going to be having going to be in an interesting phase coming up over the next few weeks in the rest of the season with no offensive line. Granted, they got Trevor Penning from the Saints, which I think was a solid trade. I mean, they had no other choice. I mean, who's going to be? I don't even know who the rest of our offensive line is. You get your top two tackles, Alt and Slater, done for the season. You had to get something. I thought the Pittsburgh defense found themselves enough. Question is, can that offense start to come along with it? I mean, they played a little better, but I don't know how much. So just for this night, give me the Chargers at home. Although I think this one's going to come down to the wire. Justin Herbert versus Aaron Rodgers. I'm not the biggest Justin Herbert fan, given after his playoff choke job in Houston last year. But he plays well in the regular season, and he plays well here to get the win. And the Monday night tilt, a lot of interesting storylines with this one. It's Philadelphia at Green Bay. I mean, potential NFC Championship preview, NFC Divisional Round preview. Of course, he met last year in the playoffs where Philly won because the Packers couldn't slow down Saquon Barkley. And I think this time, after losing to Carolina, I think it was probably a wake-up call for the Green Bay Packers, because everyone anointed them the team to beat in the NFC before the loss of Carolina. That cool now. Going against a Philly team who's coming off a bye. Even though they steamrolled the Giants before the bye, they haven't necessarily looked all that great either. I think this one's going to come down to, can Jordan Love make the plays, and can the Packers offense execute when they need to? Because I know Packers fans are just grilling their head coach, Matt LaFleur, to the ashes. But at home, I can't see the Packers losing two in a row at home. No way. Give me Green Bay at home. I think Jordan Love makes a place to get the job done, and they can lay off their head coach, Matt LaFleur. So give me Green Bay at home. I think it's going to be a pretty darn good game. Might be the game of the week, because this has playoff matchup written all over it. But give me Green Bay at home. So there's the NFL picks of the week, and I will replay the picks as it gets closer to week 10. Now to the trade deadline that took place yesterday, and maybe the day, a couple of days before it. Maybe just like it's like every trade deadline. I mean, everybody's name is going to be out there. I mean, even a guy who's you can throw a water boy's name on the trading block that somebody will try to get for him. You're going to hear that on the news. I've always said the NFL trade deadline is a little trickier than some of the other ones because it involves draft picks. And I said one of the biggest things with teams, basically all 32 teams in the NFL for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, is they overvalue draft picks to where they are too protective of them. But we know the big one that took place between the Colts and the Jets. And this was, of course, Jets sending Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 first-round draft picks and a potential bust in A.D. Mitchell. A lot of hoopla all over the place. This is a win-win trade for both sides. For the Jets, you need to start stocking up draft picks, as you haven't done anything of significance in the draft in about the last 5 years. And you're eventually going to need a quarterback because the Justin Field experiment is dead. I mean, you might as well forget it. For the Colts, reason why I like this trade for them, you're 7-2 and you're not resting on your laurels. I mean, I know they were looking for a cornerback at some point, and granted, people are going to say 2 first-round draft picks might be overkill, which I understand it. But at the rate the Colts are going, those picks are probably going to be in the lower 20s and even maybe in the 30, 31 range if they advance far in the playoffs. And so it's basically like the trade with the Rams and the Lions, Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff. Those Rams draft picks wound up being at the bottom. So we talk about this particular trade, and one thing I like about cowardce Gordon, one of the owners, taking over the Colts after the unfortunate passing of Jim Irsay. Hands-on the field, studies everything, takes notes in her head, and makes the moves that she sees fit. And that's why they made the trade they did. I mean, everybody's going to call it overkill. I understand it. I mean, the perception-wise it is. We talk about 2 first-round draft picks. But at the rate this team is going right now, and the way they put a team together, those 2 first-round picks might be in the 25 to 30 range. So you're not really losing much, especially when you consider the cornerback position supposedly in this year's draft isn't supposed to be all that great. So Sauce Gardner might be as good as any of them that coming out of that draft at that particular position in the draft positioning. So, yeah, I get it. It's on the perception it's overkill, but we talk about from the Colts angle, probably as good as cornerback as you're going to get. And the fact that you're 7-2 making this move says a lot about what cowardce Gordon and the Indianapolis Colts are thinking. I mean, you don't see 7-2 teams just say, okay, we're swinging for the fences. We're just going to – those teams usually stand pat. They didn't. You got to give them their due for this. I mean, it's a high risk because of 2 first-round picks. I get it. But it's going to be a high reward because Sauce Gardner, he's probably not as good as he was a couple years ago when he was trending up to be the best corner in the NFL, but still more than good enough. And can you imagine Lou Anarumo right now in Indiana? Can you imagine Lou Anarumo? When he was in Cincinnati, the Bengals fans refused to give him real players because Bengals fans hate real players. So he goes to Indy, he gets real players, and now he gets a corner the caliber of Sauce Gardner. Imagine what he's going to do. I mean, he was already cooking over there for the most part so far this season in Indy after the Bengals fans wanted him to get out. And as a result, this guy's killing it right now. Give him somebody like that. Let's see this guy cook because that guy is going to cook for Indy when we talk about Lou Anarumo and that defense. Yeah, a lot of things all over the place when we talk about this particular trade. I get and understand every angle of it, but let's remember, at the rate the Colts are going, those picks are going to be in probably the 23 to 30 range, and the cornerback position in the NFL draft is supposed to be not all that great when you get to that particular area because cornerbacks are basically a dime a dozen, and Sauce Gardner might be as good as any cornerback at that particular position. That's what the Colts thinking is, and that's probably why they made the move they did. But being 7-2 and taking a bold move like that says a lot, and you have to give them credit for not resting on their laurels. As Les Snead once said after the Matthew Stafford Jared Goff trade, expletive those picks. I think you can replace expletive with the word that he said because that's what cowardce Gordon is doing. She deserves credit for it. Now, of course, some of the other trades that took place, of course, the weird ones from Dallas, sending a first-round draft pick for Quinion Williams from the Jets. It's not their pick. It's not the I'm reading this now. It's a do-over again. It's a 2026 second-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, the Packers pick, and defensive tackle Mazi Smith, who was a key piece in the Micah Parsons trade. And you forked out draft capital for a lateral move. I mean, your defense isn't going to be much better. I mean, your offense is explosive, but your defense isn't going to be much better. And, of course, you added Logan Wilson from Cincinnati, which I'll touch on the Bengals aspect here in a minute. Logan Wilson maybe gets a bit of a resurrection. the Cowboys sent a 7th-round pick. But I'll just say this when we talk about the Logan Wilson, all this real quick. Your linebackers are Kenneth Murray and Jack Sanborn, and you replace Quinion Williams with Mozzie Smith. Mozzie Smith with Quinion Williams. You really didn't do much, and you forked out draft capital to get it. That's why Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones, and that's why, since he fired Jimmy Johnson in 1994, he is who he is for a reason. And remember, he wasn't the one that wanted the Herschel Walker trade. It was Jimmy Johnson who did it in spite of Jerry Jones. And when you look at these two trades, you see the reasons why. And that defense isn't going to be much better because they still have pieces all over the place. They need to figure this one out. Ravens getting Draymond Jones from the Titans. Edge rusher was definitely in need. I mean, he's been better, and it's probably going to be better helping out the edge because they need to find ways to get to the quarterback. You talk about the team that has the third lowest QB pressure rate at just under 27%. Not sure how much that helps, but it's an upgrade. And you have Mike Green, which I think he should be used more over there. But I think it's a conditional 2026 pick. I won't say it's going to bolster the defense that much better, but it's certainly going to be better than what they had. Solid pickup for the Ravens on that one. Of course, I touched on this earlier. Probably the most senseless one was Jakobi Meyers going from the Raiders to the Jaguars. You already have enough wide receiver. You have like 5 or 6 wide receivers on your roster you can go to. Why in the world do you want to fork out a 4th and a 6th for Jakobi Meyers? Not to mention, you have a $55 million quarterback who's basically worse than mid right now. And basically, you're at a point with him, you get it done, or you might as well find another quarterback because Trevor Lawrence is not it. And you've had to resort to forking out a 4th and a 6th-round pick for another wide receiver when you already have guys like Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington, and Travis Hunter on your roster. What does that say about the offense of the Jacksonville Jaguars at the end of the day? Talk about a senseless trade. That's probably the most senseless one out of all of them. Maybe a sneaky good one here is the Seahawks getting Rashid Shaheed from the Saints. Saints obviously are not going anywhere. Seattle is cooking on offense with Sam Darnold, as I said, with Jackson Smith-Njigba. You have Troy Horton on one side. You put Shaheed on the other side. You have the offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. That offense is going to cook. And basically, the vertical play is going to be much better. And it's crazy enough, Sam Darnold, we talk about yards per play, is close to 10 a game. Add Shaheed next to Troy Horton. I know Cooper Kupp's a part of it, but he's not in the lineup right now, obviously. And you already have Smith-Njigba doing what he's doing. That offense is going to cook even more. And you already have Clint Kubiak, part of the Kubiak family. If you remember Gary Kubiak from Once Upon a Time, that's going to help. So sneaky good pickup for the Seattle Seahawks. As I touched on, Trevor Penning from the Saints to the Chargers was more of a need than anything else, largely due to the injuries that took place with Rashawn Slater and recently Joe Alt. He'll provide some help, but we'll see what happens moving forward. And the last one is the Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins to the Eagles. The rest of the league just went crazy over it because the Eagles do it again. Howie Roseman is a perfect case of a GM who tries to win now and is thinking ahead. I mean, he stocks the draft picks, and as he's thinking ahead, if he has a chance to win now, he's going to go do it, and that's what he did with this trade. As he said the other day, you shouldn't be afraid to fail because Howie Roseman isn't afraid to fail with the moves he's made over the last few years. I mean, you can see whatever you want about what they're doing, but they have a formula. They're doing something right. When you talk about 2 Super Bowl appearances and, of course, winning it all last year, and in the mix to represent the NFC this season, Howie Roseman isn't afraid to take chances. I mean, if it results in a failure, he don't care. He wants to take a chance, and that's why you got to give him his due. That's why he's probably the premier general manager in all of football. So, solid move. They did need an edge rusher to help. They were linked to guys like Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson for the longest time. Settled in with Jalen Phillips. Good pickup. Dolphins just needed a clean house also. And that was pretty much the trade deadline. Some of the other ones that took place beforehand, of course, the Joe Flacco to Cincinnati, the real Joe doing all they can to carry the Bengals offense. It's just the Bengals fans don't appreciate him. Kyle Duggar from the Steelers to the Steelers from the Patriots. Patriots found him out of the rotation, and with Deshaun Elliott out for the year, solid pickup, made his impact Sunday against the Colts. So that was how the trades and trade deadline went. And I said the thing is, Harry Roseman said it best. You got to be not afraid to fail. You better step up and take chances if you want to succeed. That's why he's had the success he's had. He's basically spinning the NFL like a Milli Vanilli record right now because of it. Especially when we talk about what he did the other day with getting Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins. And speaking of Logan Wilson and what's going on here in Cincinnati, I'll just touch on this for 5 minutes because we have idiots once again. If you thought Logan Wilson, Eagles got more than a 7th-round draft pick for Logan Wilson, please go get checked for CTE because Logan Wilson doesn't have any value left. The fact you got a 7th for Logan Wilson is basically you should be celebrating it. And now you guys are psychotically crazy again, crashing and burning worse than end run again because the team didn't trade Trey Hendrickson. I mean, I don't know if they're trying to trade him or not. I mean, I'm not one of those front office gurus like the Bengals captain says he is, the bearded coward that he is. I mean, if they were, I mean, what do you guys want? I mean, I told you guys you should have beaten the Jets, you didn't. I told you guys you should have beaten the Bears, you didn't. I told you guys to not crash and burn like Enron, you did. And now you're just finding ways to make fools of yourselves. And now there's supposedly a get-together protest outside Paycor Stadium coming up next Saturday. Now, I remind you, you're not going to go anywhere with anything. Carry yourselves like cowards. And that's what you've done over the last 5 years. And what's coming up next Saturday with a supposed protest isn't going to get you anywhere. Ask Reds fans how that turned out for them a few years ago when they tried it on the Castellinis. They'll tell you word for word what really happened because you're about to be embarrassed that way again. Because that team you're going to be doing it for, they're going to be in Pittsburgh preparing for the Steelers. I said all along, if you guys have a problem with what the ownership is doing, take it to them personally. Don't take it to this. Don't march around the stadium looking like a bunch of fools because you ain't going anywhere with it. Don't take it on social media because you guys are still cowards like Drew Garrison, among many others. And you guys say Zach Taylor broke you guys. Did you guys even live through the 90s? How many guys legitimately lived through the 90s when we were in the cellar dweller, the doormats for the entire NFL, basically through the entire 90s decade, with the exception of the 62-7 blowout win over Houston? Have you ever lived through that? And if you're saying Zach Taylor broke you, I'm sorry. You need psychological treatment and CTE checkup because we told you what was going to happen a few years back when you try to ride this guy's act like Zach Taylor was the savior of the franchise when he really wasn't, because the 2 years going to the playoffs was in spite of him and in spite of ownership. And now it's caught up to you. You guys crashed and burned, and I'm sitting back having the time of my life because you guys are getting exactly what you deserve. Case closed. I'll be touching more on you guys somewhere down the line because the crash and burn I'm just having a party right now because I told you guys you don't drag me into it because you ain't going to like what I'm going to have to say. Period. I told you after you lost to Kansas City AFC Championship game, don't act like cowards. Carry yourselves better. Do better. You're not. And now you guys are getting exactly what you deserve, being Bengals fans in Cincinnati media. And right now, nobody's feeling sorry for you. This guy isn't. Actually, I'm having the time of my life watching you guys melt down. I mean, not even a candle can melt down the way you guys did. And we talk about the sinking Titanic. You guys sink faster than the Titanic. I don't know how the hell that's possible. You guys found a way to sink faster than the Titanic, and you guys are just simply a walking disgrace to society right now. Not even Enron crash and burn. Not even the Titanic sank that fast. You found a way to be worse than that. And you found a way to be worse than Mike Tyson fans after Mike Tyson lost to James Buster Douglas. That's the end game right there. I'm actually they're going to find more things to give me to talk about. I'm just going to save it because I have a serious show to carry on here. Now to the world of boxing. And speaking of guys that are a disgrace, we have a disgraceful championship fight that's supposedly in the works. between the fake welterweight champion Mario Barrios and the fake contender Ryan Garcia. The same Ryan Garcia who flunked 3 drug tests after a win over Devin Haney. The same Ryan Garcia who barely won 3 rounds tops against a fake welterweight contender named Rolly Romero. And that guy gets a title shot against the fake welterweight champion Mario Barrios, who was fortunate to escape a draw against a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Let me rephrase this timeline so everybody, so I understand this and everybody does. The fake welterweight champion Mario Barrios escaped with a draw against a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao, fighting a Ryan Garcia who flunked 3 drug tests after his win over Devin Haney, and basically was overwhelmed by the fake welterweight contender Rolly Romero. And they're fighting for a fake welterweight championship. Boxing, I tell you. I'm not even going to get into all of this because it involves the promoters, because the promoters of the respective fighters are 2 of the bigger disgraces in this fight game. Always has been, always will be. But we're stuck with it. And I don't know what's going to come out for the winner of this. But when you resort to this as a championship fight and try to accept it as a championship fight, what does it tell you about our fight game at the end of the day? And it's just a walking embarrassment that I have to spend 5 minutes mentioning a fake welterweight champion who was lucky to get a draw against a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. No, not the peak Manny Pacquiao. A 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Mario Barrios was lucky to not lose the fake welterweight championship to him. And he's fighting a guy who just flunked 3 drug tests a couple years ago. It was basically had his, handed to him by a fake welterweight contender, Rolly Romero. That should tell you what's happened to the game pretty bad when something like this happens. I mean, I don't know if it's final or not. I mean, no one's going to mistake this for being the build-up for the first Sugar Ray Leonard Thomas Hearns fight of September 16, 1981. But that's what we have. And there are people who accept it as a championship fight. It speaks to you guys why you guys are cowards. And I'm at a loss for words of how I'm going to try to explain it. I mean, I try to prepare for this to try to explain it, but I can't. I mean, the fake welterweight champion, Mario Barrios, barely escaped a draw against a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Think about that for a second. The fake welterweight champion, Mario Barrios, escaping with a draw against a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Not the Manny Pacquiao we saw dismantle Ricky Hatton or Antonio Margarito. A 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Think about that for a minute. That fake welterweight champion is going to fight a Ryan Garcia who lost to a fake welterweight contender in Rolly Romero. And they're going to fight for a championship. Boxing, I tell you. Enough of that. And speaking of championship fights, actually, we got a real one that took place 37 years ago at the Las Vegas Hilton. I'll just talk about this one because this is the opposite end of the spectrum. This was Thomas Hearns against a fighter named James "The Heat" Kinchen in a fight where nicknamed The Heat, being James Kinchen, one-time middleweight contender. This was Tommy Hearns' first fight after he was almost driven through the canvas by Iran Barkley, as he was trying to pursue big money rematches with Marvin Hagler and Ray Leonard. The Iran Barkley fight happened. You know the story there. The right hand that almost drove Hearns through the ropes. We talk about this guy's career, James Kinchen, before we touch onto the fight, a 3-time amateur champion out of the state of Texas, a 3-time Golden Gloves champion, Southwestern AAU champion, who had an amateur career of 127-12, very, very sound, underrated middleweight, who could give anybody all kinds of hell. I mean, that's why they called him the Heat. He had a career from 1980 to 1992. I mean, he fought several times for world titles after this, which I'll touch on in a second. But the story of this fight was supposed to be pegged as something for Tommy Hearns to try and get a rematch with Ray Leonard because Marvin Hagler had basically retired. But the story, James Kinchen gave Tommy Hearns heat. I can think of another word, but I'm not going to use this platform for it. Tommy Hearns got heat from James Kinchen, and that's why James Kinchen was called Heat. especially we talk about the fourth round knockdown and the fifth round, where every time Kinchen hit Hearns, Hearns was hanging on. That should tell you just how the decline of Thomas Hearns was coming and how James Kinchen was bringing the heat. I mean, that's the reason why they called him the Heat, and he brought the heat to Thomas Hearns on that night 37 years ago. When you talk about just a fun fight, maybe the epitome of what Thomas Hearns was, because he always loved, for a guy who had natural boxing ability, he loved to mix it up. And it almost cost him this particular fight, especially the right hand that floored him in the fourth round, because he was hurt. And in the fifth round, every punch James Kinchen hit him with, Tommy Hearns was holding on. And when you talk about heat as bringing the heat, that's why James Kinchen was called Heat, and he brought the heat. And Thomas Hearns had to find a way to cool off the heat every single which way possible. When you talk about buckling down in the championship rounds, that's what Thomas Hearns did. And he got a very unsatisfied unanimous majority decision win in a fight where many people thought and used the word robbery to describe what happened to James Kinchen. James Kinchen just made life heck for Thomas Hearns that night. And you had a feeling that after getting knocked out by Iran Barkley, that Thomas Hearns was going to be a little shy. At times he was. And when he got hit, it was almost it. Because he got floored in the fourth round, got hurt in the fifth round. And for the first time in Tommy Hearns' career, when he got hit, he learned how to tie up. And that's how he was managed to survive all oncoming heat from James Kinchen. As the fight went on, though, the skill level and the experience of Hearns started to show. And Hearns, some way, somehow, managed to escape. After this, 7 months later, he finally got the long-sought rematch with Sugar Ray Leonard, which was a fight where it was probably his last great performance, even though it was a draw. And he basically floored Leonard twice in a fight that all ringside observers thought Hearns should have gotten the decision. But when you think about this three-fight series, from Barkley to Kinchen to the Leonard rematch, is the epitome of what Thomas Hearns was. A fighter who had great boxing talent, could use it when he really wanted to, but had the puncher's mentality and wanted to mix it up more. And when he tried to mix it up, he found himself in trouble. We talk about how he got knocked out by Barkley, knocked down by Kinchen. It was hurt at least 3 or 4 times in the rematch against Ray Leonard. That's who Thomas Hearns was at the end of the day. A fun fighter, as I said, when I talked about his win over Rodan last week. Very underrated now, because when we talk about the fighters of the 80s, like nobody talks about him. He's a part of the 4 Kings. And we know who those include: Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, and Duran. When we talk about all the other fighters of the 80s, like Larry Holmes, Aaron Pryor, Alexis Arguello, Salvador Sanchez, Wilfredo Gomez, Hector Camacho, Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, Donald Curry, just to name several of them. Like, he came at a wrong time, but the guy was just phenomenal. And maybe his blessing and his curse was he wanted to be an exciting fighter, but sometimes he was too exciting for his own good, and that's what cost him the big fights, and it almost cost him this fight because James Kinchen was bringing the heat, and that's why he was James Kinchen. Personally, I thought the fight was a draw. A couple of close rounds there, could have gone either way. I can understand the gripe that the Kinchen camp cried robbery on, because he brought the heat and had Thomas Hearns hanging on because he couldn't stand the heat that James Kinchen was bringing. But I thought Hearns found a way. The heart as big as a country of the United States of America, he showed it, and that's why he was able to escape. But Thomas Hearns, 37 years ago, in probably a life and death type struggle, found a way to survive the heat from James Kinchen. And James Kinchen's a terrific story. We talk about this guy. He still managed to get more world title fights after this one. I mean, even though he lost to Virgil Hill and Prince Charles Williams, 2 very good light heavyweights of the back in the 80s and into the early 90s, but still managed to get some solid wins in his career along the way. Had a knockdown, had a terrific fight with Iran Barkley before this, and won the regional title from Marvin Mack before this. A very, very solid fighter. And they called him the Heat for a reason. He brought the heat, and Thomas Hearns felt the heat throughout the most of this fight, but managed to escape. But James Kinchen would have been a problem for anyone in any era. simply because he brought the heat, as his nickname said. Terrific, terrific fight. I mean, if you guys want to see a life and death struggle and how to survive it, watch this one because it was a good one. And Tommy Hearns learned survivor skills because when he fought Leonard and Hearns, the first fight against Leonard and Marvin Hagler, he was just trying to wail away and not trying to hold on, just trying to rely on his powerful right hand, thinking it was going to turn it up. It didn't work against those two guys. And we saw what happened in the fight before this against Iran Barkley when he went through the canvas. He learned how to survive. He used his experience to find a way to survive the heat from James Kinchen. And I conclude with the main event. Happy George Foreman Day to the fight followers. I think you can see this because it was 31 years ago today. As Jim Lampley said, it happened. I'm not going to touch on to it because those who follow me on the X platform, I uploaded the show I had last year celebrating the 30-year anniversary of it. Everybody knows what happened. As Jim Lampley said, it happened. That's what you got to know about it. Everyone, let me back up for a second. We talk about enigmas. George Foreman's second career was probably the enigma of all enigmas because it went everywhere from, laugh to serious to somewhere in the middle to novelty, every which word and every superlative you want to use. And that was the second career of George Foreman. But one guy believed he could do it, and there was that guy who did it 31 years ago at the MGM Grand. Why? You could do anything you want. You could bust up his face, but you could never beat the belief out of George Foreman. And that's why he came back and was able to pursue and achieve the goal to become the heavyweight champion of the world in a second career at age 45. And I said all along, when you talk about his place in heavyweight history, his second career and what he did on this night 31 years ago ascended him. You can't say that. You can't say much about 40-year-olds, maybe Bernard Hopkins with the exception of it, 40-year-olds whose legacy went up when they did more and found a way to get better and found a way to refine themselves to hit a landmark moment. And that's what George Foreman did 31 years ago tonight. Resetted himself because he was forever remembered for what happened at Rumble in the Jungle, the Ali rope-a-dope. As he said, it was a rope-a-dope and I was a dope. I mean, did he vanquish that forever? I mean, it's up to you guys if you think he did. Even Foreman said he didn't seek specific redemption, but how that spun off to all the endorsement deals the guy got, especially when you talk about the grill, which he pocketed close to $500 million just because of the name George Foreman Grill, should tell you what that 1-2 did for him from that point to the rest of his career. And as I said, the guy was like a borderline top 10 after he did this 31 years ago, middle of the pack. He went up. How many 40-plus something you can say did that? Yes, I mean, the exception with Foreman, two exceptions, Archie Moore and Bernard Hopkins. Foreman, Moore, and Hopkins are probably the only three who can say in their 40s, their legacies went up and their stature in history went up. And that's what George Foreman did when he regained the heavyweight championship. Nobody in the 40s can come remotely close. I mean, Evander Holyfield beat Mike Tyson in 96 at age, I think it was 34, but his body might have been 50 years old. But it pales in comparison to what George Foreman did at age 45. When he won the heavyweight title, his status in boxing history went up. And how many 40-year-olds can actually make that claim? Archie Moore and Bernard Hopkins, that's about it. Because that's to tell you just what George Foreman was driven to do. I mean, he said it. I mean, as his comeback was coming on, he called for the fight against Mike Tyson. We know Mike Tyson ducked it because Mike Tyson didn't want that smoke. Got his title shot against Evander Holyfield, even though he lost basically every round. Won the public over, and basically anyone that called his comeback a joke just zipped it because he showed the whole world he can hang with the big boys. And 3 years after that, in a fight where he's basically a 2-1 underdog, it was basically a coin flip fight. At a fight where he had his face turned inside out, he leveled Michael Moore, lulled him to sleep to get him to stand right in front of him. The first 1-2 where Michael Moore said he was done after the first 1-2. And then George Foreman later said, it was too high. I had a low rep. What does he do? He lowers that 1-2 on Michael Moore's chin, which lowers Michael Moore and lowers the fight to the end. And boy, did he lower that 1-2 right on the money. The second incarnation of George Foreman, maybe the thing with him was more about the placement of the punch and when to hit you. I mean, the first incarnation, the guy just basically swung the heck out of every left and right possible till you gave in, with the sole exception of Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Young. The second fight, he developed a left jab almost Larry Holmes-esque, and because of it, that's why he had success. And having Archie Moore as his trainer for the longest time, and then eventually Angelo Dundee, two guys who know how to train older fighters, especially in the Moore's case, who fought into his 40s, that helped Foreman in a second incarnation, and that's why he ascended to the heavyweight champion of the world 31 years ago and reestablished himself and moved up the upper echelon of the all-time great heavyweights, certainly in the top 5 or 6 up there. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We talk about what he did 31 years ago. I mean, that's it. Who in their 40s can say they did remotely close to what Foreman did and ascended in boxing history? Maybe Archie Moore and Bernard Hopkins. That's a list. That's to tell you what select company George Foreman was. And because he had the belief he could do it, that gave him a chance against anyone. Not just his, you can say a lot about his punch, because any 250-pound man has a punch. Michael Moore will tell you that because he was the one that felt it. But the belief to do it is the difference. That's why Foreman was able to do what he did 31 years ago. You can pick it all you want. It doesn't matter. You can say Michael Moore had the fight under control. It don't matter. As Jim Lampley said, the punch stats, the fight, everything was academic because there was 2 punches that did it in. The 1-2 that lowered Michael Moore to the canvas and lowered the fight to the end. Rest in peace, George Foreman. November 5th will always be George Foreman Day because of what you did November 5th, 1994 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And it was blew the roof off because it packed a house of almost 19,000. I'd probably say 18,800 were cheering for George Foreman. And the lovable guy, maybe the real-time celebrity makeover from what he was in his first incarnation to what he became in his second incarnation, and hit the tip of the iceberg in the second incarnation 31 years ago tonight with the 1-2 that lowered Michael Moore and put the fight to the end. Just an amazing specimen is what he was. I mean, with all the jokes and everything that was thrown at him, one thing he always believed was he could do what he did on that night at the MGM Grand. And as Jim Lampley perfectly said, it happened. And Jeff, if you guys need to listen to Jim Lampley's stories about where he come up with it and how he come up with it, it's real unique. Because just even George told him to his face, I'm going to make Michael Moore make a mistake, and I'm going to make him pay. He did that. And that's why today will forever be George Foreman Day. Rest in peace, Big George. And on that note, that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I will be back tomorrow night. If you missed this show or any other shows of the past, you can catch them on the Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio, and the Spotify apps. Soon, the rebranding is going to come. It's going to involve taking the gloves off. And yes, I have gotten the questions. Yes, I am beginning to start the transition. It will begin as the Thanksgiving comes to a close. It'll be a slow transition because I will exhaust everything I have left of this. Because when I go to the new transition, it's going to be a whole new slate, and people are going to like me less, but I don't care. As always, make self-care your number one priority in walks of life. Take care of yourself first. Always focus on you and you only. You take care of yourself first, all the good things will come your way. If you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters because you got to focus on you and you only first. Always take care of you because that's the only thing that matters. And on that note, have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves. God bless. And I will be back tomorrow night.